Galactic Empire faces humans in war for the first time. We warned them to flee reaches its zenith as Captain Reyes activates neural disruptors against the overwhelming Zolarian fleet at Epsilon Station. In a desperate gambit, she personally duels and captures Admiral Valtak aboard her ship, forcing the invincible Empire to retreat for the first time in centuries, proving humanity's defiance cannot be conquered. The gleaming bridge of the Terran Confederation flagship, Aurora, hummed with tense energy as Captain Liana Reyes stood with her arms folded behind her back, staring into the vast emptiness of space before her. The year was 2325 CE, and humanity had pushed its boundaries to the very edge of Zolarian territory. The massive viewports revealed a field of stars, punctuated by the occasional silhouette of escort frigates that patrolled the frontier. "Status report," Reyes demanded, her voice carrying the unmistakable edge of someone who had once commanded pirate vessels before finding her place in the Confederation Navy. "All systems nominal, Captain," replied her tactical officer. "Mining convoy is proceeding on schedule. No sign of Imperial activity in this sector." Reyes nodded, but her instincts, honed through years of surviving on the fringes of civilized space, told her something was wrong. The Zolarian Empire had maintained its borders for centuries, ruthlessly expanding when it suited them, obliterating any resistance. Humans had wisely kept their distance, exploring and colonizing in other directions. But resources were becoming scarce. The rich asteroid fields along the Imperial border had proven too tempting for the Confederation Council to ignore. "Maintain vigilance," she ordered, turning to face her bridge crew. "The Zolarians don't take kindly to neighbors." Commander Raj Patel, her executive officer, approached with a data tablet, a tactical genius with a quiet demeanor. Patel had served alongside Reyes for 3 years aboard the light cruiser Dauntless, which was currently docked with the Aurora for resupply. "Council transmission, Captain," he said, offering the tablet. "Classified." Reyes scanned the document, her expression hardening with each line. The Confederation Council was divided, half advocating for stronger frontier defenses, the other half arguing for diplomatic overtures to the Empire. Neither side seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. Rumors of the Zolarian war machine's efficiency weren't exaggerated. They were understated. Every species that had stood against them had been subjugated or exterminated. "They'll debate while Rome burns," she muttered, handing the tablet back to Patel. "Your orders, Captain," Patel asked. Reyes turned back to the viewport. "Prepare the Dauntless for immediate departure. I want combat drills running day and night. The Council may be content to wait, but I'm not gambling with my crew's lives." "Understood," Patel hesitated. "Admiral Takeda is requesting your presence at the strategy conference." A faint smile crossed Reyes's face. Admiral Takeda had been her mentor since her integration into the Confederation Navy, one of the few who saw the value in recruiting a former pirate captain with intimate knowledge of the frontier. Unlike most of the Admiralty, Takeda understood the threat that loomed beyond the border. "Tell him I'll be there," she replied. "But first, I want a full diagnostic on our weapon systems. If the Zolarians come, I want to give them a proper Terran welcome." 3 days later, Reyes stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, newly detached from the flagship and patrolling the outer perimeter of a mining operation in the Helios Belt. Massive automated harvesters extracted precious metals and rare minerals from the asteroids, their lights blinking against the dark canvas of space. Civilian transports moved between collection points, their hulls bulging with resources destined for the inner colonies. "Captain," called her sensor officer. "Unusual energy readings at coordinates 227 by 45. Reyes strode to the sensor console. "Define unusual." "Consistent with a hyperspace rupture, but the signature is different from our technology. Larger, more focused." A chill ran down Reyes's spine. "Battle stations. Inform the convoy to prepare for emergency jump protocols. The alarm klaxons wailed throughout the ship as crew members rushed to their positions. Reyes took her command chair, fingers flying across the tactical display. Contact Admiral Takeda, Priority Alpha. Before the communication officer could comply, space itself seemed to tear open. A massive vessel emerged from hyperspace, easily 10 times the size of the Dauntless. Its hull, gleaming with an iridescent metal, unknown to human engineering. Sharp, angular protrusions dotted its surface, giving it the appearance of a predatory sea creature. Smaller craft disgorged from its hangar bays, arraying themselves in perfect formation. Zolarian Dreadnought, Patel breathed, his normally unflappable demeanor shaken. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. On screen, Reyes ordered, standing to face whatever came next. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, humanoid figure with silvery skin and elongated features. Eyes that seemed to shift color like oil on water stared out at them, set in a face devoid of emotion. The being wore an elaborate uniform of black and crimson, adorned with symbols of rank unfamiliar to human understanding. I am Fleet Admiral Zephyr Valtak of the Zolarian Empire, the figure announced. Its voice, surprisingly melodic, despite the coldness of its gaze. You have encroached upon Imperial territory. Your mining operations violate sovereign space. Stray no further, or be purged. Reyes stepped forward. This is Captain Liana Reyes of the Terran Confederation vessel, Dauntless. According to established star charts, we are outside Imperial borders. We have no hostile intent. Valtak's expression didn't change. The Empire expands as the Emperor wills it. These resources are now claimed for the glory of Zolaria. You have 1 standard hour to withdraw all vessels and personnel. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Orders, Captain, Patel asked quietly. Reyes's mind raced through the options. The mining convoy contained over 2,000 civilian workers. Withdrawing in an hour was physically impossible. The Dauntless and her 2 escort frigates couldn't hope to stand against a dreadnought. But they might be able to buy time. Send emergency evacuation orders to all civilian vessels, she commanded. Priority for transports carrying personnel. Equipment can be abandoned. And our position, Patel pressed. Reyes met his gaze steadily. We stand. Coordinate with the Artemis and Persephone. Defensive formation Delta. We'll cover the evacuation. As the bridge crew moved to execute her orders, Reyes opened a secure channel to Admiral Takeda. His weathered face appeared, concern evident in his eyes. The Zolarians have arrived, she reported without preamble. Dreadnought class. They've issued an ultimatum. Takeda's expression darkened. Can you comply? Negative. Not without sacrificing civilians. I'm initiating evacuation, but we'll need more time than they're giving us. The Admiral was silent for a moment. The Council will not authorize military engagement. Liana. They're still debating the diplomatic approach. With respect, sir, diplomacy died the moment that Dreadnought appeared. I'm standing my ground. Takeda sighed. I understand. I'll deploy reinforcements, but they won't reach you for at least 6 hours. Hold as long as you can, then withdraw. That's an order, Captain. The Confederation needs ships like the Dauntless, and captains like you. Acknowledged. Reyes out. She turned to face her crew, all of whom watched her with a mixture of fear and determination. Today, we make history, she said simply. The first humans to engage the Zolarian Empire in combat. Our job is to protect those civilians and show the Empire that humans don't abandon their own. Tactical. Prepare intercept course. Let's give them something to think about. As the Dauntless maneuvered into position, flanked by its smaller escort vessels, Reyes watched the massive dreadnought grow larger in the viewport. She had just lit the spark that would ignite a war. The first exchanges were swift and brutal. The Dauntless launched a spread of missiles, more as a statement of intent than with any hope of penetrating the dreadnought's defenses. To everyone's surprise, 2 missiles slipped through, detonating against the larger vessel's hull. "Direct hits!" exclaimed the tactical officer, "reading minimal damage to their outer armor. But it's something." Reyes leaned forward. "Interesting. Their point defense isn't as comprehensive as intelligence suggested. Focus fire on grid sections 17 through 23. The Zolarian response was immediate and devastating. Energy weapons lashed out, slicing through space with terrifying precision. The Persephone took a direct hit to its engine core, venting atmosphere as it spun out of formation. "Persephone, reporting critical damage," Patel announced grimly. "They're abandoning ship. Escape pods launching." "Have the Artemis cover them," Reyes ordered. "Status of civilian evacuation?" 30% complete. Estimated time to full evacuation, 40 minutes. The dreadnought fired again, this time targeting the mining platforms themselves. One exploded in a brilliant flash, debris scattering across the asteroid field. "They're targeting civilians," the tactical officer shouted. Reyes's jaw tightened. "Bring us about. Attack pattern Epsilon. Target their weapon emplacements with everything we've got." The Dauntless swung around, engines straining as it charged directly at the much larger vessel. It was suicide by any conventional tactical assessment, but Reyes was counting on surprise. No one would expect a light cruiser to charge a dreadnought head-on. "Fire all forward batteries, launch countermeasures!" The space between the vessels lit up with weapons fire and decoy flares. The Dauntless shuddered as return fire scraped along its shields. But Reyes's gambit worked. The Zolarian gunners, unprepared for such an aggressive move from an inferior vessel, failed to land a killing blow. "We've damaged their forward battery," Patel reported, a note of disbelief in his voice. "Portside weapon systems showing power fluctuations." "Withdraw and circle back," Reyes commanded. "Keep their attention on us." For 20 agonizing minutes, the dance continued. The Dauntless and Artemis harried the dreadnought with hit-and-run attacks, drawing its fire while the civilian vessels fled. The smaller Terran ships were faster and more maneuverable, but the Zolarian vessel's superior firepower meant each pass came with devastating consequences. By the 4th attack run, the Dauntless had lost its starboard engine array and was venting atmosphere from 3 decks. "Civilian evacuation at 90%, Patel reported, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "Hull integrity failing. We can't take another direct hit." Reyes nodded grimly. "One more pass. Target their sensor array. Then we disengage." The Dauntless swung around for a final attack, launching its remaining missiles in a tight spread. 3 found their mark, exploding against the dreadnought's forward sensors in a cascade of secondary detonations. "Now, maximum thrust." The cruiser's engines flared as it pulled away, but not before the Zolarian vessel fired one last salvo. The shots went wide, but the shockwave caught the Dauntless, sending it tumbling. "Stabilizers offline!" shouted the helmsman. "Attempting to compensate!" As the ship struggled to right itself, Reyes saw the dreadnought turning ponderously to pursue them, then abruptly stop as a new wave of ships appeared on the sensors. "Confederation reinforcements," Patel said with relief. "Admiral Takeda must have pulled some strings." Reyes watched as the dreadnought considered the new arrivals, then slowly, almost reluctantly, turned away. A moment later, it vanished back into hyperspace. "They've withdrawn," she announced to the weary bridge crew. "For now." The aftermath was chaotic. The Persephone was lost with 12 crew members. The mining operation was in ruins, with one platform destroyed and hundreds of millions in equipment abandoned. But the majority of the civilian personnel had escaped, a fact that gave Reyes little comfort as she stood before the Confederation Council 2 weeks later. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater, its curved walls displaying the flags of every member world. The councilors themselves sat in tiered rows, looking down at Reyes as though she were a specimen under examination. "Captain Reyes," began Counselor Vargas, a thin man with a perpetually sour expression. "Your actions have precipitated what may become an interstellar war. You fired upon a Zolarian vessel despite explicit instructions to avoid military engagement. I fired to protect civilian lives." Reyes responded evenly. "The Zolarians gave us an impossible ultimatum, and then began targeting unarmed mining platforms. The diplomatic corps believes the Empire was merely demonstrating its capabilities," countered Counselor Ambrose. "A show of force that you escalated into open conflict." Reyes felt her temper rising, but kept her voice level. "With respect, Counselor, they were killing our people. There was no diplomatic interpretation possible. Nevertheless," Vargas continued, "your actions have forced our hand. The Zolarian ambassador has delivered a formal declaration of hostilities. They demand reparations and the surrender of the officer responsible, namely, you, Captain." Admiral Takeda stepped forward from where he had been standing at the chamber's edge. "The Admiralty rejects those terms categorically. Captain Reyes acted within her authority to protect Confederation citizens. To surrender her would set a dangerous precedent." "The Admiralty doesn't set policy," snapped Vargas. "This council does. And this council needs to recognize the reality of our situation," Takeda fired back. "The Zolarians were looking for a pretext. If not this incident, they would have found another. We've tracked their fleet movements. They've been positioning for this confrontation for months." A murmur ran through the chamber as counselors conferred with their aides. Finally, Chancellor Diaz, the head of the council, raised a hand for silence. "Admiral Takeda, your loyalty to your officers is commendable. However, in light of your evident bias in this matter, the Council believes it best if you recuse yourself from further strategic planning regarding the Zolarian situation." Reyes watched in disbelief as her mentor's face hardened. "Chancellor, I must object." "The decision is made. Admiral," Diaz cut him off. "You are relieved of your command of the Frontier Fleet, effective immediately." Takeda's eyes met Reyes's for a brief moment, a silent communication passing between them, before he bowed stiffly and exited the chamber. "As for you, Captain Reyes," Diaz continued, "while we will not surrender you to the Zolarians, your actions require review. You are hereby reassigned to patrol duty in the inner colonies pending a full investigation." Reyes stepped forward. "Chancellor, that would be a mistake. I've faced the Zolarians. I know their capabilities and their weaknesses. The Frontier needs experienced officers." "The Frontier," Diaz replied coldly, "needs officers who follow orders. You are dismissed, Captain." 3 days later, Reyes found herself in a nondescript bar in the space station orbiting Earth. The establishment catered to naval personnel, its walls adorned with the insignia of famous vessels. She nursed a glass of whiskey, contemplating her options, when a familiar figure slid into the seat across from her. "Permission to join you, Captain?" Patel asked with a faint smile. "We're both technically off-duty, Raj," she replied, "and possibly soon to be court-martialed. I think we can dispense with formalities." "Speak for yourself. I still have a ship." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "The Dauntless is still in space dock for repairs." "Repairs that have been mysteriously expedited," Patel said, sliding a data chip across the table. "Admiral Takeda may be officially sidelined, but he still has influence. The Dauntless is ready for departure in 12 hours, with a skeleton crew of volunteers." Reyes picked up the chip, turning it over in her fingers. "Volunteers for what?" "Intelligence gathering," Patel replied, lowering his voice. "The Admiral believes the Council is making a catastrophic mistake. The Zolarians are mobilizing their fleet for a major push into our territory. We need proof to force the Council's hand." "And if we're caught?" "Then we'll have plenty of time to perfect our court-martial defense." Patel's expression grew serious. "The crew believes in you. Liana, we saw what happened out there. The Zolarians aren't invincible. Reyes contemplated the chip for a long moment, then pocketed it. Who else is involved? Dr. Mara Lin has requested assignment to the Dauntless. She's an exobiologist who's been studying what little we know of Zolarian physiology. Says she has theories about their neural structure that might be tactically relevant. A scientist on a combat mission? The Council would never approve that. Patel grinned. Good thing we're not asking for approval. 12 hours later, the Dauntless slipped away from Earth's orbital shipyard. Its departure logged as a routine shakedown cruise, following repairs. Its true destination was known only to its captain and the small crew of 40 volunteers, less than half its normal complement. Course set for the Proxima Centauri jump point, the helmsman reported. Estimated arrival in 3 hours. Reyes nodded. Maintain low power emissions. I don't want anyone taking too much interest in our movements. She made her way to the science lab, where Dr. Mara Lin was setting up her equipment. Lin was a slight woman with intense eyes and a reputation for brilliance that bordered on eccentricity. Captain, Lin greeted her without looking up from her workstation. I assume you're here to ask why an exobiologist volunteered for what amounts to a suicide mission. Reyes leaned against the doorframe. The thought had crossed my mind. Lin finally looked up, pushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. I've spent 5 years studying fragmented data on Zolarian biology. Their neural pathways, specifically. They're fundamentally different from ours, more integrated with their technology. It's how they achieve such precise coordination in battle. And this helps us how? Every system has vulnerabilities, Lin replied, her eyes gleaming with scientific fervor. Find the right frequency, the right signal pattern, and we might be able to disrupt their neural interfaces, temporarily blind them, so to speak. Reyes considered this. You need samples, actual Zolarian technology. Precisely. And since the Council has classified all debris from your encounter as restricted materials, we need to create our own debris, Reyes finished. By finding another Zolarian ship. Lin nodded. Preferably one we can disable without destroying completely. That's a tall order, Doctor. So is surviving a war with the Zolarian Empire, Lin countered. I'll take my chances with your plan over the Council's appeasement strategy. Reyes smiled despite herself. Welcome aboard the Dauntless. Dr. Lin, let's hope we all live long enough to regret this decision. The next 3 weeks were spent in the shadows of the frontier. The Dauntless operated on minimal power, monitoring Zolarian movements through a network of stealth sensor buoys deployed along the border. Twice they narrowly avoided detection by Imperial patrols, hiding in the radiation belts of gas giants or the debris fields of ancient asteroid collisions. Their patience was rewarded when they detected a lone Zolarian destroyer conducting survey operations in a remote system, likely the vanguard of a colonization effort. Reyes gathered her officers in the tactical room. This is our opportunity, she explained, highlighting the destroyer's position on the holographic display. A single vessel, separated from the main fleet. Intelligence suggests a crew complement of approximately 200. Still significantly outnumbering us, Patel observed. Which is why we won't be engaging them directly, Reyes replied. We'll use the system's asteroid field to mask our approach, then deploy EMP mines along their projected course. When they're disabled, we'll launch a targeted strike on their engineering section, enough to cripple them without destroying the ship. And then, asked the tactical officer. A boarding party, Reyes stated. Small and fast. We secure their bridge and engineering, then extract with whatever technology Dr. Lin needs for her research. The plan was met with silence as the officers contemplated the risks. Finally, Patel spoke. It's ambitious, dangerous, but it might just work. 2 days later, the Dauntless lay in wait, powered down to minimal life support, as the Zolarian destroyer cruised through the asteroid field. Reyes watched from the bridge as the distance closed. Mines in position, Patel reported softly, as though the enemy might hear through the vacuum of space. Destroyer will cross the trigger threshold in 30 seconds. Reyes nodded. All hands, prepare for engagement. Boarding team, stand by. The seconds ticked by, tension mounting on the bridge. Then, suddenly, space lit up as the EMP mines detonated in sequence, their energy washing over the Zolarian vessel. Its lights flickered and died, momentum carrying it forward as systems failed. Direct hit, Patel announced, reading massive power fluctuations across their hull. Weapons and propulsion appear offline? Perfect, Reyes replied. Bring us in. Tactical. Target their secondary power couplings. Precision fire only. The Dauntless surged forward, emerging from behind an asteroid like a predator from cover. Its laser batteries fired in precise bursts, striking the disabled destroyer at key points along its hull. The Zolarian vessel, unable to defend itself, absorbed the attacks without response. They're completely disabled, reported the tactical officer. No signs of recovery in their systems. Boarding team, deploy, Reyes ordered. You have 15 minutes to secure what we need and return. After that, we withdraw regardless of outcome. She watched as the assault shuttle launched from the Dauntless Bay, carrying Patel, Lynn, and 10 of her best security personnel. The small craft maneuvered deftly to the Zolarian vessel's airlock, magnetic clamps engaging with a thud that reverberated through the shuttle's hull. Patel led the way, pulse rifle at the ready as the airlock cycled. The interior of the Zolarian ship was dimly lit by emergency lighting, casting eerie shadows across the angular architecture. The air was thick with an unfamiliar scent, metallic and somehow sweet. Life support still functioning, he noted. Atmosphere compatible with human physiology. But I wouldn't take deep breaths. The team moved swiftly through the corridors, encountering no resistance. The Zolarian crew appeared to be incapacitated, slumped at their stations or on the floor, their silvery skin pulsing with faint light. They're not dead, Lynn observed, scanning one with a handheld device. The EMP disrupted their neural interfaces. They're in some kind of protective shutdown mode. Will they recover? Patel asked. Eventually, hours, maybe days. I've never seen anything like this up close. They reached the bridge, a vast, circular chamber dominated by holographic displays and neural interface stations. Unlike human vessels, there were no conventional controls. The Zolarians piloted their ships through direct mental connection. This is perfect, Lynn murmured, already extracting components from the nearest console. The neural relay junctions are intact. With these, I might be able to reverse engineer a disruption field that affects their entire fleet. Patel checked his chronometer. 8 minutes remaining. Let's move to engineering. As they turned to leave, one of the security officers called out in alarm. Movement! 3 o'clock! A Zolarian officer had risen from the floor, its movements jerky and uncoordinated. Unlike its unconscious comrades, this one's eyes were alert, fixing on the intruders with unmistakable hostility. Impossible, Lynn breathed. Their neural shielding must be more advanced. The Zolarian reached for what appeared to be a weapon, but Patel was faster. His pulse rifle fired, the energy burst striking the alien in the shoulder. The Zolarian staggered but didn't fall, instead lunging forward with surprising speed. 2 security officers moved to intercept, but the alien's strength was formidable. It threw one against a console with bone-crushing force, then grappled with the second. Patel fired again, this time aiming for the creature's legs. The shot connected, and the Zolarian finally collapsed. Is it dead? One of the officers asked, approaching cautiously. The answer came in the form of a small device that the Zolarian activated from its wrist. Immediately, alarms blared throughout the ship. Self-destruct sequence, Patel realized. Everyone out, back to the shuttle. The team ran, Lynn clutching her stolen technology as they raced through the corridors. Behind them, systems began to overload, conduits rupturing in explosions of energy and debris. Dauntless, this is boarding team, Patel shouted into his communicator. Enemy vessel is set to self-destruct. Returning to shuttle now. They barely made it. As the shuttle disengaged from the airlock, the Zolarian destroyer began to break apart. Internal explosions tearing through its hull. The shuttle's engines strained as it accelerated away from the dying vessel, debris pinging off its shields. Dauntless, requesting immediate recovery. Patel transmitted. We have what we came for, but our shuttle has sustained damage. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Reyes watched the Zolarian ship's destruction with a mixture of satisfaction and regret. It was a victory, but she took no pleasure in the loss of life, even enemy combatants. Bring them home, she ordered. Then set course for Rendezvous Point Alpha. We have what we came for. Rendezvous Point Alpha was an abandoned mining outpost in a system officially designated as uninhabitable due to radiation concerns. A convenient fiction maintained by Admiral Takeda to create a secure meeting location. As the Dauntless docked with the station's aging facilities, Reyes was surprised to find not only the Admiral waiting, but also two vessels of unfamiliar design. Captain, Takeda greeted her as she stepped through the airlock. Congratulations on your successful mission. Thank you, sir, she replied. Though I'm curious about our company. Takeda's expression was unreadable. Follow me. There's someone you need to meet. He led her to what had once been the station's operations center. Seated at the conference table was a Zolarian, immediately distinguishable by its silvery skin and elongated features. Unlike the Imperial officers Reyes had encountered, this one wore simple civilian attire, and its eyes lacked the cold superiority she had come to associate with the species. Captain Reyes, Takeda said formally, may I present Lieutenant Kale Nero of the Zolarian Liberation Movement. The alien rose, extending a hand in the human fashion, a gesture that surprised Reyes. She took it cautiously, noting the cool, smooth texture of the Zolarian skin. Captain, Nero spoke, his voice carrying the same melodic quality as Valtak's, but with warmth rather than disdain. Your reputation precedes you, the officer who bloodied the Empire's nose. You're a rebel, Reyes realized. Nero's lips curved in what approximated a smile. We prefer revolutionary, but yes, I represent those within the Empire who oppose the militaristic policies of the current regime. I wasn't aware such a movement existed, Reyes admitted. That is by design, Nero replied. The Empire portrays itself as monolithic, united in purpose. The truth is far more complex. Many of us believe in coexistence, in cultural exchange rather than domination. Takeda gestured for them to sit. Lieutenant Nero contacted our intelligence services shortly after the incident at the mining colony. He's been providing information on Imperial fleet movements and capabilities. Which brings us to why I'm here today. Nero continued. Your raid on the destroyer has accelerated the Empire's timetable. Admiral Valtak has convinced the Imperial Council that humans represent a unique threat, one that must be eliminated rather than subjugated. Reyes felt her blood run cold. They're planning a full-scale invasion? Yes. The entire Third Fleet has been mobilized. 30 capital ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. Their target is Epsilon Station. Epsilon Station was the Confederation's primary frontier base, home to over 50,000 military personnel and civilians. If it fell, the path to the inner colonies would be wide open. When? Reyes asked. 2 weeks, at most. Nero answered. They're gathering their forces at the nexus point. Takeda's expression was grim. The Council still believes diplomacy is possible. They've rejected my request for fleet reinforcements at Epsilon. Then Epsilon will fall, Reyes stated bluntly. Not necessarily, Nero interjected. The Empire has never faced a species like humanity before. Your tactics against the Dreadnought and the Destroyer showed innovation, adaptability. qualities the Imperial military lacks after centuries of easy victories. He produced a data crystal, placing it on the table. This contains complete schematics of Imperial vessel classes, including shield frequencies and weapons configurations. With this, you might stand a chance. Reyes eyed the crystal suspiciously. Why would you betray your own people? I'm not betraying my people, Nero replied with sudden intensity. I'm trying to save them. The Empire has become stagnant, corrupt. Each conquest feeds its bloated military, while our own worlds suffer. This war could be the catalyst for change, especially if humans prove more formidable than expected. Takeda picked up the crystal. I've verified some of this information against what we already know. It appears genuine. Reyes considered the Zolarian carefully. What do you want in return? When the time comes, Nero said. Remember that not all Zolarians are your enemy. And when you strike against the Imperial fleet, try to disable, rather than destroy. Every vessel you capture intact strengthens our position among the disaffected. I make no promises in battle, Reyes replied, but I'll keep your request in mind. As they prepared to depart, Nero approached Reyes privately. One more thing, Captain. Dr. Lin's research into neural disruptors. It could be decisive. But you should know that such weapons cause extreme pain to my kind. They don't just disable our technology. They attack our nervous systems directly. Reyes frowned. You're asking me not to use our most effective weapon. I'm asking you to understand its implications, Nero clarified. Use it if you must, but know that such tactics will make reconciliation difficult. With that cryptic warning, the Zolarian returned to his vessel, leaving Reyes with uncomfortable ethical questions and precious little time to resolve them. Back aboard the Dauntless, Reyes convened a council of war with her officers and Dr. Lin. Using Nero's intelligence, they began formulating a strategy for the defense of Epsilon Station. The Imperial fleet will emerge from hyperspace here, Patel explained, indicating a point in space near the station. Standard formation places dreadnoughts at the center, cruisers and destroyers in a protective screen. Their numerical superiority is overwhelming, noted the tactical officer. Even with Epsilon's defense platforms, we're outgunned at least 10-1. Which is why we won't engage them conventionally, Reyes replied. Dr. Lin, what progress on the neural disruptors? Lin activated a holographic display showing her prototype device. Using the components we recovered, I've developed a disruptor that should affect Zolarian neural interfaces within a 5-kilometer radius. The effect would be temporary, perhaps 30 seconds, but during that time, their ships would be essentially blind and uncoordinated. Can it be deployed from Epsilon's defense platforms? Reyes asked. With modifications, yes. But there's a complication. Lin's expression was troubled. Lieutenant Nero was correct about the side effects. My tests on the recovered neural tech suggest the disruption would cause significant neurological distress to Zolarian crew members. Not just disorientation, but acute pain. A silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. We're talking about a weapon that causes suffering, Patel said quietly. Not just a military defeat. Reyes paced the length of the conference room. The alternative is to allow Epsilon Station to fall, along with everyone on it. The Empire has made its intentions clear. Perhaps we could issue a warning, suggested Lin. Give them a chance to withdraw before we deploy the disruptors. They wouldn't listen, Reyes replied. Not after coming in force. The debate continued long into the night. But in the end, the decision was made. The Dauntless would return to Epsilon Station with Dr. Lin's prototypes. They would integrate the disruptors into the station's defense grid and prepare for the Imperial assault. What they couldn't prepare for was the political opposition they would face upon arrival. Captain Reyes. Station Commander Heikkinen's voice was cold as ice. You were reassigned to Inner Colony Patrol. Your presence here is unauthorized, as is your mission to engage Zolarian forces. I have orders to detain you and impound your vessel. Reyes stood firm in the commander's office, Admiral Takeda at her side. "Commander, I have intelligence confirming an imminent attack on this station. The Zolarian Third Fleet will arrive within days." "Intelligence from a supposed Zolarian defector," Heikkinen scoffed. "Unverified and contrary to all diplomatic assessments. The Council believes the Empire is open to negotiation." "The Council is wrong," Takeda interjected. "I've staked my career on this warning. Commander, if we're mistaken, I'll accept full responsibility. But if we're right and you fail to prepare, the deaths of everyone on this station will be on your conscience." Heikkinen wavered, his rigid adherence to protocol battling with the gravity of the threat. Finally, he sighed. "You have 24 hours to present your evidence to my staff. If they find it compelling, I'll authorize defensive preparations. But your disruptor technology remains quarantined until I receive explicit approval for its use." It was a compromise, but not enough. As Reyes and Takeda left the commander's office, they exchanged grim looks. "He'll waste precious time debating while the Zolarians prepare to strike," Reyes said. Takeda nodded. "Then we work around him. I still have friends on this station, officers who understand what we're facing. Meet me in Maintenance Bay 12 in 2 hours. Bring Dr. Lin and her prototypes." Maintenance Bay 12 turned out to be the control center for Epsilon's outer defense perimeter, a ring of automated platforms that served as the station's first line of defense. The officer in charge, Lieutenant Commander Sato, was an old friend of Takeda's from the academy. "Admiral," Sato greeted them, closing the door behind them. "I've reviewed your intelligence. It's alarming, to say the least." "Then you understand why we're here," Takeda replied. Sato nodded grimly. "The defense platforms are due for a routine software update. If additional code were to be included in that update, it wouldn't be noticed until it was activated," Reyes finished. "Precisely. I can give you access to the platform's control systems, but the actual integration would need to be handled by someone with expertise in both our technology and the Zolarian neural interfaces." All eyes turned to Dr. Lin, who was already examining the platform schematics on a nearby console. "It's possible," she said after a moment. "The disruptors would need to be modified to interface with the platform's targeting systems. But the principles are the same. With Commander Sato's help, I could have the system ready within 48 hours. "You have 36, Reyes told her. "After that, we need to focus on evacuation protocols for non-essential personnel." For the next day and a half, they worked in secret. Dr. Lin and Commander Sato integrated the disruptor technology into the defense platforms, while Reyes and Patel prepared the Dauntless and coordinated with the handful of other captains willing to defy the Council's orders. Admiral Takeda, meanwhile, used his remaining influence to arrange evacuation transports under the guise of supply rotation. They were still working when the alarm sounded. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," announced the station's AI. "Bearing 047 Mark 312. Classification, unknown." Reyes and Takeda rushed to the command center, where Commander Heikkinen was already issuing orders. "All defensive systems to full alert," he commanded. "Civilian personnel to shelter areas. I want a channel open to the approaching vessels as soon as they're in range." The main view screen showed the empty space beyond the station. Then, as if reality itself was tearing, a massive Zolarian dreadnought emerged from hyperspace. It was followed by another, then another, until the screen was filled with Imperial vessels, a fleet larger than any the Confederation had ever assembled. "Gods help us," someone whispered. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "It's the Imperial flagship." Heikkinen straightened his uniform. On screen, Admiral Valtok appeared, resplendent in his battle armor. His expression was one of cold satisfaction as he surveyed the human command center. "Commander Heikkinen of Epsilon Station," he announced. "The Zolarian Empire has determined that your species represents an unacceptable threat to Imperial security. You will surrender your station and all vessels immediately. Resistance will result in your annihilation. Heikkinen paled, but maintained his composure. Admiral Valtok, we have made no aggressive moves against your empire. Surely this conflict can be resolved through diplomatic... Diplomacy is a luxury afforded to equals. Valtok interrupted. You have demonstrated capability beyond your development stage. Such anomalies cannot be permitted to destabilize the established order. And if we refuse to surrender? Heikkinen asked. Valtok's expression didn't change. Then, you will serve as an example to others who might challenge imperial dominance. You have 1 standard hour to evacuate all personnel who wish to live. After that, we will commence bombardment. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Orders, Commander? Asked the tactical officer. Heikkinen turned to Reyes and Takeda, his earlier skepticism replaced by grim acceptance. It seems you were right, Captain, Admiral. What do you suggest? Evacuation of all non-essential personnel immediately, Takeda replied without hesitation. Defensive positions for all combat-capable vessels, and activation of Dr. Lin's neural disruptors at the moment of engagement. The disruptors are ready? Heikkinen asked, surprised. They will be, Reyes assured him. But we need to coordinate the station's defenses with our ship's movements. When the disruptors activate, we'll have only seconds to press our advantage. Heikkinen nodded. Make it happen. I'll coordinate the evacuation. As the commander turned away, Reyes pulled Takeda aside. Sir, you should go with the evacuation transports. The Confederation will need your leadership if Epsilon falls. Takeda's expression hardened. My place is here, Captain. Besides, I outrank everyone in this room. Someone needs to take overall command of the defense. And the Dauntless is yours, as always. I'll coordinate from the station. You'll lead our counterattack when the disruptors activate. Reyes saluted. It's been an honor, Admiral. Save the eulogies for later, Captain. Takeda replied with a faint smile. We're not dead yet. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Evacuation transports departed in a continuous stream, carrying as many civilians as possible to safety. The station's defense platforms were brought to full readiness, their targeting systems recalibrated to accommodate Dr. Lin's modifications. Every available ship, from Confederation cruisers to repurposed mining vessels, took up defensive positions around the station. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Reyes reviewed the battle plan one final time with her officers. The moment the disruptors activate, we target the lead dreadnought's propulsion systems, she explained. The Artemis and Vigilant will focus on its weapons arrays. Our goal is to cripple it without destroying it completely. Create confusion in their fleet. And if the disruptors don't work? Asked the tactical officer. Reyes met his gaze steadily. Then we fight until we can't. Every minute we delay them is another transport that escapes with our people. The hour expired. The Zolarian fleet began to move, spreading out into an attack formation that would surround the station. All vessels, battle stations. Admiral Takeda's voice came over the comm. Epsilon defense platforms online. Stand by for engagement. The Imperial fleet opened fire. Energy weapons lanced out, striking the station's shields in a dazzling display of destructive power. The outer defense platforms returned fire, their weapons seeming pitifully inadequate against the armada they faced. Shields at 80% and falling, reported Commander Sato from the station. Platforms taking heavy damage. Hold position, Takeda ordered. Wait for my signal. The Zolarian vessels pressed their attack, concentrating fire on the station's shield generators. 2 defense platforms exploded, their debris scattering across space. Shields at 50%, Sato announced, his voice tense. We can't sustain this bombardment much longer. Reyes watched as the Imperial fleet tightened its formation around the station, exactly as they had predicted. The dreadnoughts moved into optimal firing positions, surrounded by their escort vessels. Now, Admiral, she urged over the comm. They're in position. Dr. Lin, Takeda commanded, activate the disruptors. For a moment, Nothing seemed to happen. Then, simultaneously, every Zolarian vessel in the fleet faltered. Their precise formation dissolved as ships drifted out of alignment. Weapons fire ceased abruptly. "It's working!" Patel exclaimed. "Their systems are disrupted." "All vessels, execute Attack Plan Delta," Takeda ordered. "You have 30 seconds before they recover." The Dauntless surged forward, leading the Confederation counterattack. Reyes had drilled her crew relentlessly for this moment, and they performed flawlessly. Precision fire struck the lead dreadnought's engines, disabling 2 of its 3 propulsion arrays. The Artemis and Vigilant targeted its main weapon emplacements, their combined firepower overwhelming the temporarily disabled shields. Across the battlefield, other Confederation vessels struck at the disoriented Imperial fleet. Smaller, more maneuverable human ships darted between the massive Zolarian vessels, landing devastating hits before pulling away. 20 seconds remaining. Patel counted down. Imperial vessels showing signs of recovery. "Deploy the stealth drones," Reyes commanded. From the Dauntless launch bay, a swarm of unmanned drones emerged, each carrying a modified version of Dr. Lin's disruptor. They scattered across the battlefield, taking up positions around key Imperial vessels. 10 seconds, Patel announced. "All vessels, disengage and regroup at Rally Point Omega," Takeda ordered. "Prepare for second wave." As the Confederation ships pulled back, the Zolarian fleet began to recover. Systems came back online, ships stabilized their positions, and weapons powered up once more. But the damage had been done. The lead dreadnought listed to port, its engines sputtering, while several other vessels showed signs of significant damage. Admiral Valtak's voice boomed across all frequencies, rage evident in his normally controlled tone. "This treachery will not save you. All vessels, target the station directly. Maximum firepower." As the Imperial fleet prepared to fire, Reyes gave the order. "Activate the drones." The stealth drones lit up, each emitting its own disruption field. Unlike the station-wide burst, these were targeted specifically at the Zolarian vessels' targeting arrays. The effect was immediate. Their weapons fire went wild, missing the station entirely or striking their own ships. "It's working!" Patel exclaimed. But their advantage was short-lived. A Zolarian cruiser, apparently less affected than its counterparts, launched a spread of missiles at the drone cluster. 3 exploded in rapid succession, their disruption fields collapsing. "They're adapting," Reyes realized. "All vessels, re-engage. Target the cruiser at coordinates 227 Mark 183. The battle descended into chaos as the Confederation forces fought desperately to press their advantage before it disappeared completely. The Dauntless led a squadron of fighters against the targeting cruiser, dodging return fire as they approached. "Direct hit on their weapons control," the tactical officer reported as their missiles struck home. "They're disabled." But for every victory, there was a setback. 2 Confederation frigates exploded under concentrated fire from a recovered dreadnought. One of the station's main shield generators failed, leaving a quarter of its surface exposed. "We can't sustain this." Takeda's voice came over the comm, punctuated by the sound of explosions in the background. "The station's structural integrity is failing." Reyes made a quick decision. "Admiral, evacuate the station. Get everyone to the escape pods. We'll cover your withdrawal." "Negative, Captain. Someone needs to maintain the primary disruptor until the last transport is away." Reyes understood what he wasn't saying. Someone had to stay behind. "Sir, with respect." "That's an order. Captain Reyes." Takeda cut her off. "Get your ship clear and protect those transports. That's how we win this, by surviving to fight another day." Before she could argue further, a new threat emerged. The lead dreadnought, despite its damaged engines, was maneuvering directly toward the Dauntless. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's Admiral Valtak." The Zolarian commander's face appeared on screen, his eyes burning with cold fury. "Captain Reyes, the architect of this abomination, Your neural weapons are an atrocity against my kind. No more an atrocity than the annihilation you planned for us. Reyes replied evenly. We offered no provocation, yet you declared us a threat to be eliminated. Because you are, Valtok hissed. Your species learns too quickly, adapts too readily. You would upset centuries of imperial dominance. Perhaps that dominance has lasted too long, Reyes suggested. Perhaps it's time for change. Valtok's expression shifted subtly. I will offer you one opportunity. Captain, face me, ship to ship. If you prevail, the fleet will withdraw. If I prevail, your station and all its inhabitants will be spared, taken as subjects rather than eliminated. Patel muted the transmission. It's a trap. They would never honor such a bargain. I know, Reyes agreed. But it gives us something more valuable. Time. Time for the remaining transports to escape. She unmuted the channel. I accept your challenge, Admiral. Name the coordinates. Valtok smiled coldly. My vessel will dock with yours. We will settle this aboard your ship, a test of our respective resolve. Reyes knew that allowing Zolarians to board the Dauntless was incredibly risky, but she also saw an opportunity. Agreed. Transmit your approach vector. As the transmission ended, she turned to Patel. Prepare a boarding defense team, and contact Dr. Lin. I want her ready with a localized version of the disruptor. You're actually going through with this? Patel asked incredulously. I'm buying time, Reyes replied. And creating an opportunity. If we can capture Valtok alive, we gain a powerful bargaining chip. The dreadnought approached slowly, its damaged engines struggling to maintain precise control. As it maneuvered alongside the Dauntless, the difference in size was starkly apparent. The Imperial vessel dwarfed the human cruiser like a whale beside a dolphin. They're extending a docking tube, reported the tactical officer. Sensors detect 5 life forms preparing to board. Remember, Reyes instructed her defense team, non-lethal tactics if possible. We want prisoners, not corpses. The airlock cycled open, and Admiral Valtok strode onto the Dauntless, flanked by 4 Zolarian guards in full battle armor. The Admiral himself wore ceremonial garb, but Reyes wasn't fooled. The ornate metal plates were functional armor, and the decorative staff he carried hummed with energy. Captain Reyes, Valtok greeted her with cold formality. I had expected someone more imposing. Reyes stood her ground, unarmed, except for her sidearm. I've found that true strength isn't measured by physical stature, Admiral. A convenient philosophy for a species as frail as yours, he replied. Shall we proceed to your bridge? A fitting location for the contest that will decide your people's fate. Reyes nodded to her security team, who formed an escort around the Zolarian delegation. As they moved through the corridors of the Dauntless, she noted how the alien warriors studied every detail of the ship, gathering intelligence even now. On the bridge, the regular crew had been replaced by security personnel, with only Patel remaining at his station. Dr. Lin waited near the engineering console, her presence explained away as that of a technical specialist. Your vessel is primitive, Valtok observed, running a hand along a console. Yet you managed to bloody the Imperial fleet. Curious. We're full of surprises, Reyes replied. Now, shall we discuss terms? Terms, Valtok laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. This is not a negotiation, Captain. It is a demonstration. He turned to face her fully. You believe your neural weapons give you an advantage. I am here to prove that even with such tools, you cannot hope to match Zolarian resolve. He raised his hand, and his guards moved into attack positions. Now! Reyes shouted. Dr. Lin activated the localized disruptor, hidden beneath the engineering console. The effect was immediate. Valtok and his guards staggered, their neural interfaces overwhelmed by the targeted frequencies. The Admiral dropped to one knee, his face contorted in what might have been pain. "Secure them," Reyes ordered. Her security team moved in, applying restraints to the disoriented Zolarians. But Valtok, through what must have been incredible willpower, fought through the disruption. He surged to his feet, swinging his staff in a wide arc that sent 2 security officers flying. Reyes drew her sidearm, setting it to stun. "Stand down, Admiral. This fight is over." Valtok turned to her, his eyes burning with hatred. "It will never be over. Not while your kind threatens the natural order." He lunged at her, moving with surprising speed despite the disruptor's effects. Reyes fired, but the stun blast seemed to have minimal impact on the Zolarian's enhanced physiology. The Admiral's staff struck her arm, sending her weapon skittering across the deck. They grappled, Valtok's superior strength nearly overwhelming her. But Reyes had spent years fighting opponents larger and stronger than herself, first as a pirate, then as a naval officer training against all manner of species. She used the Zolarian's momentum against him, pivoting to send him crashing into a console. Valtok recovered quickly, spinning to face her again. "Impressive," he acknowledged, "but futile." "Is it?" Reyes asked, circling warily. "Look around you, Admiral. Your guards are subdued. Your dreadnought is crippled. And even now, our people are escaping the destruction you planned for them." "They will not escape the Empire," Valtok insisted. "Others will hunt them. This is merely the opening move in a war your species cannot win." "Perhaps," Reyes conceded. "Or perhaps this is the moment when the Empire learns it is not invincible." Valtok attacked again, but this time Reyes was ready. She dodged his staff and delivered a precise strike to what intelligence suggested was a vulnerable point in Zolarian physiology, the junction between neck and shoulder. The Admiral faltered, momentarily stunned. "Security team, now!" she commanded. This time, her officers successfully subdued Valtok, applying specialized restraints designed to inhibit his enhanced strength. The Admiral glared at her as he was forced to his knees. "You think this changes anything?" he snarled. "The fleet will destroy your vessel rather than allow me to be captured." "Actually," Patel interjected from his console, "your fleet is rather preoccupied at the moment." He activated the main view screen, showing the battle outside. The Zolarian fleet was in disarray. Half their vessels engaged with the remaining Confederation ships, while others attempted to target the escaping transports. And in the midst of the chaos, Epsilon Station, supposedly evacuated, was unleashing a final barrage from its weapons platforms. "Admiral Takeda," Reyes realized. "He's drawing their fire." As they watched, the station's remaining shields failed. Zolarian weapons fire tore into its structure, causing cascading explosions along its outer ring. Yet still, the defense platforms fired, targeting the Imperial vessels with unerring precision. "A futile gesture," Valtok observed, though there was a note of respect in his voice. "Your station is doomed." "But its people will survive," Reyes countered. "And now, we have you." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Imperial fleet. Let them see their admiral." The channel opened, broadcasting Valtok's captive state to his own vessels. Reyes stepped forward, addressing the Zolarian commanders directly. "This is Captain Liana Reyes of the Terran Confederation. Your admiral sought single combat and has been defeated. He is now our prisoner. Cease your attack on our vessels and withdraw, or he will face Terran justice for the lives taken here today." There was a long silence. Then, one by one, the Zolarian vessels began to disengage, pulling back from the shattered remains of Epsilon Station and the fleeing transports. "They're withdrawing," Patel confirmed, surprise evident in his voice. Valtok's expression was unreadable. "They will return with a larger fleet." "Probably," Reyes agreed. "But now they know the cost of engaging us, and next time, we'll be better prepared." As the Imperial fleet retreated to a safe distance, a final explosion tore through Epsilon Station's core. The structure that had been the Confederation's frontier fortress for decades collapsed in on itself, becoming an expanding cloud of debris. "Admiral Takeda," Reyes murmured, feeling the loss like a physical blow. Patel approached, his voice low. "The last transport reports they're clear of the battle zone. 87% of station personnel successfully evacuated. It was a victory, but one purchased at terrible cost." Reyes faced Veltok, who watched her with calculating eyes. "What now, Captain?" the Admiral asked. "Will you execute me as an example?" "No," Reyes replied. "You're more valuable alive, both as a hostage and as a symbol that the Empire is not invincible." She turned to her officers. "Set course for Rendezvous Point Beta. We'll link up with the surviving vessels there." To Dr. Lin, she added, "I want to know everything about Zolarian neural interfaces. If they return, we need better countermeasures." Lin nodded. "With the Admiral as a subject, I can refine the disruptors to be more effective and less painful." "Good," Reyes said, "because this isn't over, not by a long shot." In the weeks that followed, the survivors of Epsilon Station regrouped at a hidden base established by Admiral Takeda before his death. The Confederation Council, shaken by the destruction of their frontier stronghold, finally acknowledged the threat posed by the Zolarian Empire. Resources were allocated for defense, and Reyes, now promoted to Commodore, was given command of the rapidly expanding frontier fleet. Veltok remained their prisoner, though he was treated with the respect due his rank. Over time, he engaged in limited dialogue with his captors, particularly Dr. Lin, whose scientific curiosity he seemed to find oddly admirable. 1 month after the Battle of Epsilon Station, Reyes received an unexpected visitor at the fleet headquarters, Lieutenant Kale Nero, the Zolarian rebel. "Commodore," Nero greeted her, bowing slightly. "Word of your victory has spread throughout the Empire. You've accomplished something remarkable. You've created doubt." "Doubt?" Reyes asked. "In the Empire's invincibility," Nero explained. "For centuries, my people have believed that Imperial dominance was the natural order of the universe. Now, whispers spread of a species that fought back and won. Hardly a definitive victory," Reyes pointed out. "We lost Epsilon Station. Hundreds died. But thousands lived," Nero countered. "And you captured an Imperial admiral, a feat unprecedented in our history. The revolution gained supporters daily. Military officers, scientists, civilians tired of endless war." Reyes studied the Zolarian carefully. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance," Nero replied. "Formal, though necessarily secret. Your technology combined with our knowledge of Imperial systems. Your tactical innovation with our understanding of Zolarian psychology. To what end?" "The overthrow of the militant faction that controls the Empire," Nero stated simply, "and the establishment of a government open to peaceful coexistence." It was a bold proposal, perhaps too bold. Yet Reyes couldn't deny the logic. Humanity could not hope to defeat the entire Empire through conventional warfare, but with allies from within. "I'll need to discuss this with the Council," she said. "Of course," Nero agreed. "But know that time is limited. The Empire prepares a second fleet, larger than the first. They will not underestimate you again." As the Zolarian departed, Commander Patel joined Reyes at the viewport, overlooking the shipyard, where new vessels were being constructed, faster, more heavily armed, incorporating lessons learned from their first engagement with the Empire. "Do you trust him?" Patel asked. "Not entirely," Reyes admitted, "but Admiral Takeda did. And right now, we need every advantage we can get." Later that evening, Reyes stood alone in the observation dome, gazing at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the visible spectrum, lay the Zolarian homeworld, a place of both incredible beauty and oppressive tyranny, according to Nero. "We warned them to flee," she murmured to herself, remembering the ultimatum that had started this conflict. "But now, We fight for their freedom too. The war had begun with a simple act of defiance, her refusal to abandon civilians to their fate. Now it had evolved into something far more complex. A struggle not just for human survival, but for the soul of an empire. And Liana Reyes, once a pirate, now a commodore, found herself at the center of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. She activated her communicator. "Patel, contact Lieutenant Nero. Tell him I'm ready to discuss terms." As she turned to leave, her gaze lingered on the stars once more. The Zolarian Empire had ruled unchallenged for centuries, its dominance assumed to be the natural order. But they had never faced humans before, a species defined by its ability to adapt, to innovate, to stand against impossible odds. And now, the Empire would learn what it meant to face an enemy that refused to submit.